The decree that stripped Marianne Firth of her craft license carried her own seal almost. Under the white lamps of the Whitewax Royal Registry, Chancellor Varon Sedge held the parchment above the land judges, while clerks laid Marianne's carving tools on black cloth. 3 seizure orders, Varon said, all impressed with the widow Firth's registered wolf and crescent matrix. 12 households removed. 4 estates transferred under emergency crown authority. Marianne looked past the judges to the wax. The royal wolf's jaw, split moon, and law line were right. But the pressure was wrong. Turn it toward the north lamp. Varon remained patient. This is not a workshop demonstration. It became one when you used my craft as evidence. Wolf King Eamon Ravencroft stood at the upper bench in a dark coronation coat. His public coronation waited 6 days away. Explain the defect. The lower edge was pressed twice. My hand settles pressure from the wolf's brow toward the moon. This impression was forced from the jaw upward. The wax contains furnace chalk. I use moonbone ash, cut the edge and test it. Cutting a disputed royal seal alters the evidentiary edge, Varon said. The law requires a land judge, independent wax examiner, and registry witness before the first incision. Then summon them. Do not punish the cutter before calling the examiner. Varon set the decree flat. The image matches her matrix. The evening access pages were damaged in a winter leak. The gate register and key issue book remain, Marianne said. Read them before claiming the room was mine alone. Eamon descended 1 step. Did you carve this matrix? I carved the registered master. Not that impression. The face is identical. Faces are what seal thieves copy. Pressure is where they betray themselves. Since her husband's death, Marianne had carved Whitewax's legal matrices. Varon opened a velvet case containing 3 unfinished matrices recovered from her workroom. The rejected pieces reproduce the wolf, crescent, and law line. They cannot reproduce my full pressure sequence. Their inner channels were unfinished. Someone would need a second registry key or a later overlay. You signed their inventory. I signed the rejection inventory. The destruction officer had to countersign the transfer, enter them into the furnace, record the melt weight, and return the receipt. No receipt survives. Then, the missing record begins, after my custody ended. Varon did not raise his voice, or a skilled cutter understood which missing record would protect her. The cruelty worked because it sounded like caution. For 1 dangerous second, memory passed between Marianne and Eamon. He had once brought her midnight letters sealed only with plain cord. Marianne had carved a private running wolf seal for them, visible only after the wax cooled. Now counterfeit authority threatened the coronation 6 days away. Stay the seizures, Marianne said. Seal the decrees under divided custody. Suspend my new work if you must, but preserve the tools that can prove how the impressions were made. Varon lowered his eyes, as though granting dignity. Your Majesty, the displaced families deserve review, but an active craft key connected to disputed decrees may issue further authority before the coronation. Eamon looked at Marianne. I trusted your hands. You trusted them when they served you in private. Today they are inconvenient in public. Marianne Firth, your craft license is suspended pending independent criminal and registry inquiry. Until review is complete, you may not carve, repair, issue, or authenticate a legal seal within Ravencroft territory. You are taking the only skill by which I have lived since my husband died. I am preventing disputed authority from spreading. Do not rename destruction as caution. You will receive a widow's stipend. My honesty was my livelihood. A stipend does not restore it. The chief clerk lifted Marianne's working registry tablet. It was not the archival license, but the keyed instrument that allowed her pressure channel to enter crown wax. You can seal the tablet under witness, Marianne said. Breaking it will destroy the cleanest comparison to my registered pressure. Eamon understood. No active key connected to disputed crown decrees remains usable, while the succession seal is under question. The clerk broke the tablet across the registry block. Marianne's active registry channel went dark. Living moon wax did not judge guilt or authority. Properly carved, its inner channels preserved the earliest complete pressure sequence that cooled inside them, even when a later layer was reheated over it. The earliest impressions remained fixed. Across the north wall, later layers borrowing Marianne's craft identity began losing their hold. Thin silver lines spread through the 3 seizure seals. One decree lifted as 2 translucent layers separated. The upper layer carried permanent seizure wording registered through the chancellor's office. Beneath it, the earlier pressure layer read, "Temporary inspection. No transfer of household title." Behind the rail, an older householder raised the receipt issued when her family was removed. 3-day inspection, she said. No transfer of title. The split proved that a later pressure layer had altered the wording. It did not identify the hand, authority, or room where the second layer was added. Varon placed a preservation frame over the lifting corner. Delamination can follow reheating, contaminated ash, or an unstable counterfeit base. The layers require controlled examination before anyone assigns authorship. Marianne looked at Eamon. If it is contamination, cut it open. He did not release her. The decrees, broken tablet, rejected matrices, tools, and seal books will be held under 3 seals, Eamon ordered. 1 land judge, 1 independent wax examiner, and 1 technical witness, chosen by Marianne. The Chancellor's office may observe and receive certified copies. The guards continued toward the doors while the impressions behind Marianne separated 1 quiet crescent at a time. By morning, the 3 disputed decrees lay beneath separate glass frames in the East Examination Room of the Whitewax Royal Registry. The split wax proved that each seizure order held more than 1 pressure sequence. It did not prove who reheated the seals, who authorized the later wording, or how Marianne Firth's registry family entered the later pressure paths. Marianne stood outside the work circle, her license still suspended. First incision requires 3 witnesses and a preserved edge sample. Proceed, Eamon said. You broke the cleanest working comparison last night, Marianne told him. I know. Knowing after destruction is not preservation. No further evidence leaves divided custody. The examiner removed a hair-thin strip. Beneath the surface lay 2 wax beds. Lower moonbone wax cooled through 1 complete sequence, and an upper furnace. Chalk layer marked by reheating and pressure driven upward from the wolf's jaw. The upper layer was added after the lower wax cooled. Varon Sedge watched from the observer's rail. Can you identify the cutter? No. Wax records direction, depth, reheating, and sequence not a human hand. The examiner compared the channels with Marianne's broken tablet. The overlay followed an active path within Marianne's registry family, but failed to reproduce her complete settling pattern. It does not identify who generated that partial path. The later layer carried my registry family, not my hand, Marianne said. Eamon met her eyes. I condemned the likeness before preserving the difference. You suspended the expert before preserving her ability to prove it. The gate register showed Marianne leaving before evening bell on all 3 dates. No return key appeared in her name. The corridor master key was issued after hours, Varon said. The code belonged to Central Registry Administration. That gives my office access responsibility, not personal entry. Correct. Read the door seal record. Transfer authority had allowed a clerk and witness to break the prior workroom seal, open the rejection cabinet, remove the packet, and lawfully reseal the room. The morning seal proved only that no unrecorded breach followed. The recovered matrices had not been found in that cabinet. They were inside Marianne's locked finishing chest. The transfer gap could explain escape from destruction. It did not explain when or how the pieces later entered her chest. The chest lock, key, hinges, and search seal were entered for examination. Marianne's personal key remained in seizure inventory, but no one had established whether a duplicate or administrative tool existed. The tribunal sealed the original search record before any witness could amend it. The destruction officer testified next. I received 3 wrapped pieces. Correct weight. Correct inventory cord. Did you inspect them? Marianne asked. No. Packets remain sealed to prevent copying. Who delivered them? A registry courier. The courier line was blank. That identifies the last undocumented hand, the land judge said. It does not prove substitution occurred there. Every registered matrix carried a moonbone channel spine beneath its white metal body. The metal melted, but the spine left mineral trace in furnace ash. The officer verified only total weight. Equal scrap metal could pass without bone cores. The command form register showed permanent seizure wording released to 6 chancellor office clerks. Varon controlled the form, not every parchment prepared through it. Elspeth Rowe placed her 3-day inspection receipt beside the first decree. My family was removed under this order. When we returned, our title had changed. The remaining decrees showed the same lower ash, upper chalk, and upward overlay pressure. One method altered all 3. The examiner said, "That does not prove one person performed every act." Eamon addressed the land judges. Stay every transfer arising from these decrees. Return no estate yet, but permit no sale, lease, demolition, or further removal. 2 estates had been pledged as revenue security for coronation guards and road escorts. Freezing the titles froze those contracts. They can be replaced, Varon said, but not without delay, cost, and public notice. Then the contracts will wait. The succession seal did not make Eamon king. Lawful accession already had. Cutting it would bind his coronation decrees and authorize the reign's title settlements. The succession seal remains uncut. No new title or seizure decree will issue through Whitewax until its authority is verified. Ordinary government continued. The delay still cost replacement contracts, public confidence, and the timetable Eamon had protected at Marianne's expense. Her suspension remained. The finishing chest evidence, partial registry family match, and planting interval were unresolved. The witness residence was not a prison, but Marianne could not leave Whitewax or access her workshop without tribunal permission. As she was escorted back, the furnace ledger arrived under divided seal. It recorded all 3 matrices destroyed 8 months earlier. Registry law required an ash vial from every matrix burn. The furnace officer sealed it after cooling, pressed the receipt number into its wax, and transferred it to the mineral archive under a second officer's mark. The vial number matched the receipt. The archive countersignature and outer wax were intact, and intake weight matched the unopened vial. Has the seal remained intact? Varon asked. No opening, transfer, or weight variance is recorded, the archive officer said. The vials before and after it matched their entries and mineral traces. This one contained no moonbone. The intact custody makes later sample exchange unlikely, the examiner said. This vial contained no moonbone channel trace. It does not rule out wrong ash being sealed before intake, the land judge said. No, either equal weight substitutes entered the furnace or wrong ash was sealed under this receipt. We cannot yet distinguish them. If the vial is authentic, Varon said, packet preparation, furnace intake, and archive sealing remain separate acts. Eamon ordered the vial, neighboring samples, furnace schedule, staff records, courier gap, and Marianne's finishing chest, preserved outside Central Registry Administration's sole control. The weight was correct. The mineral trace was not. The registry had recorded the matrices as destroyed. The fire had not yet proved it. The sealed ash vial could no longer authenticate the destruction of Marianne's matrices. It established either equal weight packet substitution or false ash assignment before archive intake. It did not identify which failure occurred. By mid-morning, the furnace cooling schedule, neighboring burn records, and scale book lay under 3 seals. The questioned packet entered Furnace 2 at the 9th bell. No other legal matrices burned that hour. The adjacent vials came from title plates and border toll stamps. Their mineral traces matched their entries. The furnace officer stood before the land judge. "Who filled the questioned vial?" "I did, after the chamber cooled." "Could you have taken ash from the wrong burn?" "Not without crossing 2 marked trays, but I cannot prove another hand did not move them before I sealed the vial." No tray exchange appeared in the cooling book, but the furnace floor had no second witness between chamber opening and vial sealing. Varon Sedge inclined his head. "So archive exchange is unlikely, but furnace floor misassignment remains possible." "Yes," the examiner said. "The official destruction chain is unreliable. That is narrower than proving deliberate substitution." The destruction intake officer was called next. He had accepted the folded bundle, verified its authorization, label, inventory cord, weight, and outer seal, then applied the final destruction seal without opening it. The packet was listed as Marianne's 3 rejected matrices. "Did you verify the contents?" Marianne asked. "No. It arrived already folded." "From whom?" "Central transfer." "Name?" The courier line was blank. The scale witness confirmed the recorded mass. Registry law forbade reopening a destruction bundle after its outer seal was accepted. "What could match the weight?" Eamon asked. "Blank registry key tablets," the metallurgist replied. "White metal blanks issued before individualized moonbone channel cores are installed. The ash contained that alloy class, but no finished matrix alloy or installed moonbone core. The alloy narrows the source. It does not identify a shipment." Marianne remained outside the work circle while the tribunal opened the finishing chest evidence. The search record named 2 registry guards, 1 chancellor office clerk, and a land court witness. All agreed the chest was locked beneath Marianne's workbench. "The clerk stopped after the seized key's first turn," the witness said, "and used a recorded override blade to bypass the inner catch." "The first turn did not fail," Marianne said. "The chest requires a second." The search blade carried a recorded serial mark and remained under seal. It was one of 3 accounted for tools. A 4th blade was missing. If an override blade can bypass the catch without damage, who last held the missing 4th blade? The locksmith examined the keyway, hinges, and catch. No forced damage. The missing blade created an access path, not a user or a date. The recovered pieces were compared with Marianne's rejection sketches. Their visible flaws matched, and their channel spines aligned provisionally. Microscopic fracture comparison remained necessary. They might be originals, precise copies, or altered reconstructions. The archive produced 8 years of correction slips Marianne filed after her husband's death. They showed repeated reports of altered wording, returned miscut work, and objections when noble instructions exceeded lawful form. "This supports her ordinary practice," the land judge said. "It does not determine what happened on the disputed nights." Before his death, 8 years earlier, Marianne Firth had served as a licensed registry materials receiver, authorized to accept blank registry key tablets and countersign-controlled deliveries. At death, his receiving seal was retired, his active code cancelled, and its impression archived. No lawful later transaction could carry it. Eamon recognized dates in Marianne's correction slips. "You completed this work on the same nights you sealed my private letters. You brought them because you trusted my discretion. I trusted more than that. Not when trusting my skill required you to defend it before witnesses." 6 Chancellor Office clerks with permanent seizure forms remained under record restriction, not arrest. 3 held after-hours codes. 1 requested furnace chalk. Records had not established whether that clerk also held a night code. "Furnace chalk is lawful for emergency overlays," Varon said. Lawful amendment leaves the prior line visible, bears a countersignature, and enters the amendment register, Marianne replied. This layer did none of those things. Elspeth Rowe's file showed a later office entry converting her temporary inspection into revenue security for coronation guards. Her household had never countersigned. That omission may suspend the conversion, Varon said. It does not identify who altered the wax. Then keep investigating without making my ruined license your conclusion. The suspension remains under review, not as a finding of guilt. Eamon replied. No registry officer will cite it as proof, while the planting and destruction chains remain unresolved. The order restored neither work nor income. By evening, provisional guarantees came from Crown Reserve at triple cost, removing the disputed estates from coronation financing, while title review continued. The blank registry key tablet ledger arrived last. One purchase authorization from the previous winter matched the suspicious material class and packet weight. It had been issued 7 years after Aldrin died. The ledger established a shipment record with the correct material and weight. The timing strengthened the substitution theory, but it did not establish that those tablets entered the destruction packet. The document contained a genuine central registry purchase approval and a later receiving certification. The approval authenticated the office channel, not the receipt. No carrier manifest or storehouse intake entry proving physical delivery had been found. Varon examined the receiving line. A retired seal pattern creates an impossible certification. It does not identify who made the impression or whether any delivery occurred. The archive comparison was completed under witness. The receiving impression reproduced Marianne Firth's retired registered pattern. It had been entered 7 years after his authority ended. Someone had used a dead receiver's credential to certify a delivery the registry had not yet proved occurred. The receiving impression reproduced Marianne Firth's retired seal. It did not prove the original seal survived, that any tablets were physically delivered, or that whoever certified receipt ever touched the shipment. By noon, the Whitewax Royal Registry had become a public hearing chamber. Displaced householders stood behind the landrail. Noble title holders filled the upper gallery. Marianne remained at the technical witness table, separated from her tools by 3 seals and from her profession by Eamon's suspension order. A land baron addressed the judges. A dead receiver's credential appears on a purchase linked by weight to suspected substitutes. His widow controlled the workshop where the missing matrices were found. Linked by weight is not linked by possession, Marianne said. And his seal pattern was archived by the registry after his death. The baron turned to Eamon. Your Majesty, how many coincidences must gather around one craftswoman before caution becomes judgment? Eamon's expression did not change. As many as evidence requires. Her suspension will not be converted into guilt by repetition. It was protection of process, not restoration. The death ledger showed Aldrin's receiving authority cancelled 8 years earlier. 2 witnesses had watched his working seal broken under standard retirement law. The fragments were placed inside a numbered archive box, while a clean impression remained in the retired pattern book for future fraud comparison. The archive conservator brought the box beneath divided custody. Outer seal intact, she said. No recorded opening since retirement. Varon Sedge studied the wax. Does the intact outer seal prove the fragments were never altered? No. It proves the box was not opened after that seal cooled. We must establish whether the present seal is the original retirement seal. The archive wax matched the correct year and official mixture. Its pressure code belonged to the death ledger clerk named in Aldrin's record. The box was opened. 4 white metal fragments rested inside. Marianne did not reach toward them. That should be 5. The conservator compared the pieces with the retirement sketch. The ledger records 5 fragments. Varon leaned closer without crossing the evidence line. Could the sketch be inaccurate? The break lines were drawn while both witnesses were present. 1 fragment had been recast. Its outer surface matched Aldrin's seal metal, but the underside contained newer white metal without the mineral age of the other pieces. The original channel edge was gone. The finding did not prove when the replacement entered the box. It established only that a fragment was missing before the currently verified archive seal had been applied, or that someone with lawful sealing access replaced the fragment and resealed the box under a valid retirement credential. Who could access retired seal patterns? Eamon asked. The archive conservator, death ledger clerk, central registry director, and licensed transfer technicians, the chief recorder said. Pattern books may also be viewed under two-witness order. Was Aldrin's pattern requested? 3 post-death requests appeared. 2 concerned ordinary fraud checks. The third came from Central Registry Administration the previous winter, the same month as the suspicious blank registry key tablet purchase. The request cited legacy receiving code conversion. Varun answered before the gallery could turn the phrase into accusation. My office converted old material ledgers to the current numbering system. Hundreds of retired credentials were reviewed. Was the review necessary to reproduce the seal? Marianne asked. No, only to compare old entries. Who signed out Aldrin's page? One of the 6 clerks already under restriction. The request bore a clerk code shared by 2 rotating administrators. The individual hand had not yet been identified. The tribunal then examined the physical delivery records. No carrier manifest named the blank tablets. No wagon entered the Whitewax gate under the purchase number. No storehouse intake showed the quantity received. The purchase may have been approved but never filled, Varun said. Or the materials entered through an unrecorded route, Marianne replied. Both remain possible. The alloy batch record narrowed nothing further. The supplier produced the same white metal for 12 registry orders that winter. The finishing chest yielded a more specific result. Microscopic scoring appeared inside the second turn catch. The marks matched the width class of registry override blades. Can you match them to the missing 4th blade? Eamon asked. Not without recovering it, the locksmith said. The search blade could produce similar width, but its edge carries a nick absent from these marks. The official search tool had not made them. The marks predated the search. Marianne looked toward the judges. Someone opened my finishing chest before the Crown witnesses arrived. Someone used a compatible tool, Varun corrected. That does not establish what they placed inside. The recovered matrices were brought forward. Microscopic fracture comparison matched 2 pieces to Marianne's rejection sketches and original channel defects. The third carried a repaired edge that prevented full confirmation. 2 are almost certainly the transferred originals, the examiner said. The third remains unresolved. A noble judge asked Marianne why she had deliberately carved tiny defects into unfinished matrices. Because rejected work still carries danger, she replied. A flaw no lawful seal would retain gives future examiners something a thief may overlook. You anticipated forgery. I anticipated that authority should never depend upon trusting the person holding it. Eamon's gaze met hers. That was the lesson he had failed before the court. The archived fragments of Aldrin's retired seal were measured against the partial registry path inside the 3 altered decrees. The missing channel edge was the exact width required to generate the incomplete pressure architecture that had entered Marianne's tablet family. Someone had not merely copied a dead man's credential. Someone had removed part of it from the registry archive and used it to make Marianne's hand appear inside the wax. The missing channel edge from Marianne Firth's retired seal could generate the partial registry path found inside the altered decrees. It did not prove that the fragment had been fitted to a transfer tool, pressed into wax, or handled by any person under investigation. The land judges ordered the fragment, replacement metal, retired pattern book, and every legacy transfer instrument placed beneath divided seal. Varun Sedge remained at the observer's rail. If Central Registry loses access to its transfer equipment, he said, Ordinary credential renewals will stop. Ordinary renewals may continue through the Eastern Office, Eamon replied. Whitewax will not examine its own compromised archive. You are removing the Chancellor's department from records it is legally charged to maintain. I am removing sole custody. Your office may observe, submit questions, and receive certified copies. Marianne stood beyond the work circle. You preserve evidence now because breaking my tablet taught you what destruction costs. Yes, that is not the same as restoring what you destroyed. No, the exchange left no comfort between them. The examiners first tested whether the missing fragment could physically reproduce the later pressure paths. They did not use disputed wax. A neutral transfer press received a blank mineral sheet, a replica of the surviving channel edge, and no active registry key. The result produced only a broken crescent of pressure. It requires a live or copied registry path to remain stable, the examiner said. The fragment alone cannot create the overlay. Could Marianne's tablet family supply that path? Varron asked. Yes. So could an administrative transfer key carrying part of the same family architecture. The registry held 7 such keys for moving licensed patterns between working tablets after death, retirement, or damage. 6 were accounted for. The 7th had been withdrawn the previous winter under a legacy conversion order. Whose authorization? Eamon asked. Central Registry Administration. Time. That remains an office route, Varron said. Not a named user. Eamon ordered the withdrawal ledger sealed. Then he placed a black correspondence chest on the evidence table. Marianne recognized it before the lock opened. You kept them, every letter. For years, Eamon had brought her midnight pages carrying no title, no royal witness, and no command-only thoughts. He trusted nowhere else. Marianne had sealed them with the private running wolf matrix she carved for him after Aldrin's death. The land judge frowned. Private correspondence cannot authenticate a crown matrix. No, Marianne said. But repeated impressions can establish how my hand settles pressure across different tools. Eamon removed his privilege seal from the chest. I waive private correspondence protection for technical examination of the seal edges. Varron studied him. The contents may affect alliances if entered into a public record. The contents remain unread, unless an edge cannot be examined otherwise. You are risking royal confidence for a handwriting comparison in wax. I risked her livelihood for less. The independent examiner opened only the folded edges. 12 impressions spanning 7 years showed the same downward settling pressure, the same controlled release at the wolf's shoulder, and no upward force from the jaw. This supports a stable craft pattern, she said. It does not determine what occurred on the 3 disputed nights. Marianne looked at Eamon. You trusted these seals because they protected words you were afraid to speak. I did. But when my work required protection, you treated familiarity as proof against me. I did. He did not ask her to make the admission easier to bear. The tribunal compared the private impressions, Marianne's correction slips, the broken tablet grooves, and the later decree layers. Her authentic work remained consistent across years. The overlays carried her registry family, but not her complete pressure behavior. The finding weakened the claim that Marianne personally pressed the added layers. It did not clear her of providing a copied path, losing control of a tool, or participating through another person. Her suspension remained active. Eamon then issued a narrower order. Until the planting chain is resolved, no registry officer may describe Mistress Firth as a convicted forger, and no crown payment may be conditioned upon silence or renewed service. You cannot return my reputation by regulating the words used to destroy it, Marianne said. No, but I can stop the crown from expanding the damage while the truth is unfinished. The legacy transfer instruments were inventoried before dusk. The 6 present keys carried clean channel edges. The missing 7th key had been checked out with a calibration sheet stating that retired receiving patterns needed conversion before the coronation title cycle. Attached to the sheet was a test impression. Its pressure path combined Marianne's registry family with the missing edge from Aldrin's retired seal. The test had been made 11 days before Elspeth Rowe's decree was altered. At the bottom, beside the routine phrase approved for administrative continuity, stood Chancellor Varon Sedge's personal countersign. Varon Sedge's countersign proved that he approved the calibration sheet. It did not yet prove that he ordered the later seizure overlays, pressed them himself, or knew the test path had been carried into legal decrees. The independent land judge read the authorization aloud. Retired receiving patterns may be converted for administrative continuity. During interruption of licensed craft service, Varon remained behind the evidence rail. The succession cycle required a backup method if a cutter died, became incapacitated, or refused emergency work. Was Marianne incapacitated? Eamon asked. No. Had she refused legal work? No. Then why did your office combine her registry family with a fragment removed from her husband's retired seal? To test whether old material credentials could be transferred into the current system. Marianne looked at him. Transfer testing uses copied channels and marked practice wax. It does not require stealing a fragment from a sealed death archive. Varon's expression did not change. If the fragment was removed unlawfully, that act requires separate proof. The archive did not provide it. The central registry continuity file did. A confidential memorandum authorized selected, rejected matrices to be retained before destruction for emergency calibration. The document described them only by inventory weight, but the dates and totals matched Marianne's 3 unfinished pieces. The approval route passed through Varon's office. His personal seal did not appear on the removal line. It appeared on the policy authorizing retention without notifying the original cutter. You permitted rejected matrices to leave the destruction chain, Eamon said. I permitted controlled retention for succession continuity, without the cutter's knowledge, to prevent any licensed hand from holding private veto over Crown authority. Marianne's voice remained level. You took work I had rejected, removed it from its legal destruction path, and kept it where your office could use its visible authority without my pressure discipline. I kept the registry functioning. You made my honesty inconvenient to the system that depended upon it. The missing 7th administrative transfer key had been issued under the same continuity memorandum. Its checkout ledger carried a central registry room code. 2 clerks and Varon held authority to enter that room, though no surviving log identified who physically removed the key. One of the 6 restricted clerks was brought before the tribunal. She did not claim to have seen the decrees altered. She had prepared what Varon called low-conflict title lists. What made a property low-conflict? The land judge asked. No living noble sponsor, no royal wardship, no active military protection, no heir serving at court. Elspeth Rowe gripped the rail. You mean families no one powerful would defend? The clerk lowered her eyes. That was not the language used. What language was used? Marianne asked. Administrative resistance unlikely. Varon answered before the phrase could become a complete accusation. The lists identified properties where temporary inspection would cause the least disruption to national roads and supply contracts. And permanent transfer? Eamon asked. That was not the original purpose. The tribunal opened the attached revenue memoranda. Temporary inspections were expected to release emergency control of mills, crossings, and storehouses. A later notation converted several holds into title-bearing assets that could secure coronation contracts. The notation used the permanent seizure command form controlled by Varon's department. It carried no household consent and no visible amendment entry. Did you authorize conversion? Eamon asked. I authorized emergency continuity of essential revenue. That was not my question. Varon paused. I authorized the office to preserve usable control where temporary release would endanger signed obligations. Elspeth's face hardened. You took my house because guards had already been promised money from it. I preserved contracts attached to the estate. You preserved the contract by erasing the people who owned what funded it. No one corrected her. The furnished chalk request belonged to the same clerk who prepared 2 low-conflict lists. She also held one of the 3 after-hours access codes. That overlap strengthened the chain. It did not establish that she acted alone, that she used the missing transfer key, or that Varon instructed her to hide an overlay beneath completed wax. The clerk's amendment notebook contained one line: use retained matrices where visible continuity must be preserved. The initials beside it matched Varon's administrative review mark. Varon examined the original. I approved visible continuity. I did not approve concealed alteration. Then your office used the method you built beyond the limit you now claim, Marianne said. The recovered matrices were compared again under microscopic fracture review. 2 matched the rejected originals beyond reasonable technical dispute. The third had been recut along its inner channel, combining Marianne's identifying flaw with the missing Aldrin fragment. The secret was no longer that someone had copied Marianne's seal. Varon's office had retained her unfinished matrices, built an administrative pressure path from a dead receiver's credential, and selected families least able to challenge Crown paperwork. Who physically pressed each decree remained unresolved. Eamon removed Central Registry Administration from title authority and placed Varon under formal office restriction. He was not arrested. He retained counsel and the right to answer every record. Marianne's license remained suspended. Then the coronation registrar opened the prepared succession decree inventory. 19 ceremonial title decrees had already been sealed for display 6 days later. Everyone carried the same incomplete pressure path, hidden beneath its whitewax surface. The 19 coronation decrees carried the same compromised pressure path. That did not make every title settlement false. It meant Whitewax could no longer authenticate them through the system that had prepared them. Eamon ordered the inventory chamber sealed. Varon Sedge remained under office restriction but stood with counsel at the landrail. If every decree is quarantined, he said, lawful inheritances, border grants, and widow protections will be delayed with the disputed transfers. Then separate them by evidence, Marianne replied. Do not call an unverified decree lawful because its delay is inconvenient. The independent examiner inspected the first 3 ceremonial seals. Each contained Marianne's registry family architecture, joined to the incomplete Aldrin channel edge. No later wording has separated yet, she said. The pressure path is compromised, but the text may still match its approved draft. Can Mistress Firth authenticate them? A registrar asked. Marianne looked toward her sealed tools. My license is suspended. Eamon answered before the registrar could ask for an exception. She will not be ordered to practice under a suspension imposed by the Crown. The registrar lowered his voice. Without her comparison, review may take weeks. That is what institutional neglect costs, Marianne said. You built Whitewax around one widow's hands and called the arrangement efficient. For 8 years, no second master cutter had been funded. Marianne had trained junior carvers, but succession work remained restricted to her registered pressure family. The restriction protected Crown authority, while making the Crown dependent upon a woman it could discard in a single hearing. Varon addressed Eamon. A temporary technical commission could authorize her limited return. Limited return to the work that was used against her? Marianne asked. To prevent wider harm. My usefulness does not erase the conditions under which you took it. The land judges divided the 19 decrees into categories. 6 matched approved title drafts word for word. 5 contained wording changes recorded in visible amendment ledgers. 8 lacked complete comparison records. No decree was destroyed. None could proceed to the succession ceremony. The coronation registrar removed the display ribbons from the chamber doors. Eamon watched in silence as the public timetable he had protected at Marianne's expense came down one strip at a time. By afternoon, he lifted Marianne's residence restriction. Her license remained suspended, and she could not enter her workshop without tribunal permission, but she was free to live anywhere within Ravencroft territory and attend hearings through counsel. He found her packing the few belongings she had brought to the witness residence. Where will you go? My house in Lower Lantern Ward. The registry may still require your testimony. It may request it. And the defect book. Marianne closed the small iron-bound volume beside her clothes. It belongs to me. The tribunal will receive certified pages for the 3 matrices under investigation. The complete book could help review the 19 decrees. It also contains every flaw I designed to prevent rejected work from becoming usable authority. Giving the Crown the whole book would teach the next thief where to cut. Eamon absorbed the rebuke. Then you choose the examiner, and the page is released. That should have been the rule before you placed my tools under the office investigating itself. Yes, she fastened the travel case. He did not reach to carry it. I have ordered funding for 3 additional master cutters and an independent custody board. Do not build them as replacements for me. I thought that was what you wanted. I want a registry that does not collapse when one woman refuses to be consumed by it. That is not the same as pretending her labor never mattered. Eamon's face tightened. I do not know how to repair both. Begin by not making me teach you every step. She walked past him. At the outer stair, he held out the black correspondence chest containing his private letters. They are yours, Marianne said. The wax is your work. The words are your burden. I kept them because they were the only place I had spoken without calculation. And yet when calculation entered the courtroom, you treated the hands that protected those words as disposable. He lowered the chest. I will not use what I trusted in private to demand anything from you now. That is the first correct use you have made of those letters since this began. She left Whitewax without royal escort. The registry continued without her, and immediately showed how much hidden labor had been mistaken for ordinary function. Junior cutters could prepare common permits, but title reviews accumulated. Independent examiners found inconsistent pressure records across older shelves. Families arrived with receipts that did not match their registered holdings. Crown Reserves continued paying replacement coronation contracts at triple cost. Eamon did not summon Marianne back. He opened a public claims desk outside Whitewax instead, staffed by land judges and non-registry clerks. Displaced families could submit deeds without passing through Varon's department. The first day produced 31 disputed household orders. The second produced 54. On the third evening, Elspeth Rowe brought Marianne a certified image from the quarantined coronation inventory. One of the 8 incomplete decrees names my street, she said. Marianne studied the pressure lines. The visible text granted road protection after Eamon's coronation. Beneath the surface, the living moon wax held a second sequence that had not yet separated. Its channel direction matched the 3 seizure overlays, and along the lower crescent sat the tiny flaw Marianne had cut into every unfinished matrix. The coronation inventory had not merely inherited a compromised tool. Someone had prepared it to continue the land seizures after Eamon's crown was publicly bound. The flaw inside the quarantined coronation decree matched Marianne's rejected matrix mark. It proved that an unfinished matrix had contributed to the pressure path. It did not prove who prepared the decree, who intended to activate the later wording, or whether the added layer had ever received final authority. Eamon reconvened the land tribunal inside Whitewax before noon. The 19 coronation decrees remained under glass. The succession seal waited uncut in the adjoining chamber. Varon Sedge stood with counsel, beneath formal office restriction. Marianne attended as an independent technical witness, not as a crown cutter. The examiner opened the decree naming Elspeth Rowe's street. The visible layer granted road protection after coronation. Beneath it lay a second sequence converting houses along the road into permanent crown maintenance holdings once Eamon's succession seal was bound. No title transfer appears in the approved draft, the land judge said. Varon examined the command register. The added clause follows a continuity form. It may have been prepared for emergency use without receiving final authorization. Then why was it sealed beneath the visible decree? Eamon asked. To allow immediate activation if public access failed during coronation week. By removing families from their homes? By preserving control of the road. Marianne looked across the evidence rail. You keep calling ownership control when the owner is too ordinary to object. The remaining 7 incomplete decrees underwent edge review. 5 contained dormant title conversion layers beneath public grants. 3 targeted streets, already listed as administratively low resistance. The same method appeared in each: retained matrices, partial registry, family paths, concealed furnace, chalk amendments, and no visible countersignature. One preparation system produced them, the examiner said. That still does not identify every hand involved. Varron did not dispute the finding. The continuity policy permitted preformed emergency language. It did not permit hidden title conversion, Marianne replied. No. If that occurred without lawful activation, the process exceeded the policy. Eamon ordered the confidential continuity file read into the public record. Varron's office had approved retaining rejected matrices, converting retired credentials, and preforming emergency decree layers. The documents described road security and administrative stability. None openly authorized concealment beneath complete wax. The evidence showed that Varron designed the system and preserved the tools that made the altered decrees possible. It did not yet prove that he personally ordered every household seizure. Eamon rose beneath a dark succession arch. Marianne Firth was accused of forging crown decrees because their visible seals resembled her registered work. He repeated the original charge before the same land judges who had heard it. The controlled examination has found no evidence that she pressed the later layers. Her gate records show no return on the disputed nights. Her complete settling pattern is absent. The registry's own custody failures allowed her rejected matrices and family architecture to be used without her verified hand. Marianne did not look relieved. Eamon continued. I suspended her before preserving her working comparison. I permitted her tablet to be broken despite her warning. I allowed appearance to become punishment before evidence became examination. Varron's deception did not erase those choices. I withdraw the Crown's allegation that Marianne Firth forged the 3 seizure decrees. The Independent Licensing Council entered its separate ruling. No unauthorized cutting, concealed amendment, or intentional transfer of registry access had been established against Marianne. Her professional license was restored. The ruling did not come from Eamon. He accepted it publicly. The Crown record will be corrected. Lost income, legal expense, and damage caused by the witness restriction will be compensated without requiring silence or royal service. Marianne met his eyes. You cannot purchase the years in which every client will remember the accusation before the correction. No. Then do not call compensation repair completed. I will not. Eamon removed the Whitewax registry from control of all title and succession seal examinations. An independent board of land judges, licensed cutters, household representatives, and outside wax examiners received temporary custody. Varron objected through counsel. The Crown cannot surrender title administration indefinitely. Not indefinitely, Eamon said, until an institution that concealed amendments can prove it deserves authority again. He ordered every disputed transfer frozen and every prepared coronation decree published beside its approved draft. No family would lose possession while review continued. The succession binding remained postponed. Outside Whitewax, Crown creditors raised the price of replacement security again. 2 noble houses threatened to withdraw from the coronation procession. Eamon did not reverse the order. That evening, he went to Marianne's house in Lower Lantern Ward without guards. She did not invite him beyond the doorway. The council says the succession seal cannot be safely cut without a master comparison, he said. You have 3 new cutters. They have skill. None has handled this registry family long enough to certify the hidden paths. So you came for the woman the Crown learned not to replace. I came to ask, not command, whether you will examine the coronation seal. Marianne's hand remained on the door. Every family removed under those decrees is still waiting outside the institution that erased them. I opened the claims desk. That is not the registry. What would be? She looked past him toward Whitewax's pale towers. Let them enter the room where their homes became paperwork. Eamon understood the condition forming between them. Marianne did not promise to carve his coronation seal. She only told him what the crown would have to face before she considered touching it. The next morning, the doors of the Whitewax Royal Registry opened before the noble galleries. Not for coronation guests, for the families whose homes had become entries beneath concealed wax. Marianne Firth stood at the registry stair, with Elspeth Rowe beside her. Behind them waited men and women carrying receipts, boundary sketches, funeral deeds, and household keys that no longer opened the doors recorded in their names. Eamon met them without crown or ceremonial guard. The land tribunal is prepared. Prepared where? Marianne asked. Inside the main chamber, and the witness rail removed. Off-croat. She did not thank him. Every displaced family enters before the succession seal does. Varon Sedge appeared beneath escort with counsel. The registry cannot admit unverified claimants into an active title archive. Then place the evidence under glass and the people beside it, Marianne said. You protected parchment from the families it erased. Today you protect both. The independent board approved controlled entry. Householders surrendered blades and loose wax but kept their keys and family records. Eamon opened the noble gallery. No closed hearing, Marianne said. No closed hearing. Inside, 19 coronation decrees hung beneath white lamps. The succession seal remained uncut on its stone block. Marianne did not touch it. Elspeth's 3-day inspection receipt was read beside the later title conversion. The earlier command granted temporary road access. The concealed overlay converted her home into permanent crown security. Elspeth placed her key on the evidence table. My husband cut this before he died. Your decree did not change what it opened. It changed who was allowed to enter. The land judge marked the property for provisional return review. Ownership was not restored immediately. Liens, occupants, and later contracts still required examination. Marianne insisted upon the limit. Do not repair one unlawful shortcut with another. One by one, the household spoke. Some records showed concealed title conversion. Others revealed lawful inspections, followed by unauthorized extensions. 3 claims lacked enough surviving paper for a conclusion. No one promised truth the evidence could not support. By midday, a registrar approached Marianne. The coronation begins in 2 days, if the seal can be authenticated. There will be no authentication today. Your license has been restored. My license gives me authority to refuse unsafe work. The registrar looked toward Eamon. He did not overrule her. What conditions remain? He asked. Every household named in the 19 decrees enters this room. Every approved draft lies beside its sealed version. Every hidden layer is examined under divided custody. No coronation decree takes effect against anyone denied notice. Varon's counsel objected. That turns a technical review into a public title court. It became one when your office hid ownership changes beneath ceremonial wax. The independent board approved her conditions. Eamon brought the private correspondence chest into the chamber. Marianne's expression tightened. These are not required. No, but the record says your hands became dangerous when they held too much access. I want the sealed edges entered only as proof that I trusted the same discipline in private for years. You do not get to turn intimacy into evidence of innocence. I know. The edge records are already certified. The contents remain sealed. He placed the chest beneath the correction order and stepped away. The gesture did not ask her to remember tenderness. It made his private dependents submit to the limits he had denied her. Near dusk, the last displaced family entered Whitewax. Only then did Marianne approach the succession block. Under 3 lamps, its visible matrix appeared clean. Along the inner crescent, A shallow pressure path carried the same incomplete architecture found in the altered decrees. "Do not cut it," she said. The coronation registrar went still. Eamon stopped beside the block. "Can it be repaired?" "Not while connected to the compromised transfer path." "Can a new seal be made?" "Yes. Not from Whitewax custody and not by one cutter alone." "What do you require?" 3 licensed cutters from separate districts. Household witnesses. A new matrix carved publicly. No chancellor transfer key. No retired credential. The approved coronation words displayed before the wax cools. Varron looked toward the seal. "If that path activates during binding, every connected decree may receive force. That is why I refused to carve before the families entered." The independent board isolated the succession seal from every registry channel. As the connection broke, the living moon wax across the 19 decrees trembled, not because it judged the room, because the hidden overlays had lost the active path keeping them fused. Thin white sheets lifted from the first decree. Then the second. Marianne did not reach for Eamon's crown. She took control of the evidence table. "Bring every family forward," she said. "No decree separates without the person it was meant to dispossess standing here to witness it." The first decree separated into 2 complete pressure histories before Elspeth Rowe's hand left the evidence table. The lower living moon wax retained the earliest cooled sequence. Temporary inspection. 3 days. No transfer of household title. The upper layer carried the later command. Permanent crown holding, revenue attachment, title conversion after succession binding. The wax identified sequence, pressure, and reheating. It did not identify the hand or determine legal authority. The remaining decrees opened beneath the white lamps. As each overlay lifted, the living moon wax cooled around the exposed floor, leaving a permanent split crescent no reheating could close. Hidden clauses lifted like pale skins from the original text. Some added road control, others converted mills, homes, and storehouses into coronation security. Every altered layer carried the unfinished floor Marianne had carved into rejected matrices and the partial registry path built from Marianne Firth's retired credential. The independent examiner marked each document with a permanent red registry cut. "Any decree carrying this path is suspended from legal use," she said. "The mark identifies a compromised instrument chain. It does not establish one author for every document." Varron Sedge stood beside counsel. The continuity system was built to preserve government if licensed cutters failed. Marianne faced him across the open chamber. "It was built from work, removed from destruction, without the cutter's knowledge. I authorized retention. You authorized low-resistance property lists. For emergency planning, you authorized concealed continuity layers. I authorized preparation for rapid lawful use." The land judge placed Varron's memoranda beside the separated decrees. His countersign appeared on the calibration path. His administrative review mark appeared beside the instruction to use retained matrices where visible continuity must be preserved. His office had selected households without noble, military, or royal protection. His revenue order allowed temporary holds to remain where releasing them would endanger signed contracts. None of those records proved Varron personally pressed wax. Together, they proved he designed, authorized, and preserved the system that converted hidden amendments into usable crown authority. A restricted clerk then identified the final office practice. When the prepared wording exceeded the visible decree, we were told not to enter it in the amendment register unless activation became necessary. "Who gave that instruction?" the judge asked. "The chancellor gave it during continuity review." Varron did not deny the meeting. "I believed public disclosure of every dormant emergency clause would invite resistance before danger existed." Elspeth lifted her household key. "The danger existed for us." The tribunal found Varron responsible for unlawful matrix retention, concealed amendment policy, misuse of retired credentials, and title administration conducted without notice or household consent. Separate criminal proceedings would determine document fraud, conspiracy, and responsibility for planting evidence in Marianne's finishing chest. Varron was removed from the chancellorship, barred from registry authority, and ordered to surrender every office seal. "I preserved a crown that could act without delay," he said. "You preserved speed by choosing people whose losses would not delay you," Marianne replied. Eamon stepped beneath the unbound succession arch. The first decree used to condemn Marianne carried a surface likeness I accepted as sufficient proof. She asked me to test wax composition, pressure direction, matrix custody, and the destruction chain. I suspended her before ordering any of them. He placed the broken pieces of her working tablet beside the public record. I destroyed evidence after she warned me what it contained. I kept the estate transfers active. I offered a widow's stipend as though income could replace standing. Varron's conduct does not excuse mine. The independent board formally corrected Marianne's registry record. Her license, master cutter certification, and custody rights were restored by the licensing council, not royal favor. Eamon ordered compensation for lost income, legal costs, and professional harm without requiring silence, crown service, or coronation work. He transferred permanent title seal custody from the chancellor's office to an independent board containing cutters, land judges, and household representatives. Then he turned toward the succession block. A new coronation matrix will be carved publicly by 3 independent cutters. No title decree will bind through it until every displaced claim has received review. The coronation remained postponed. Months passed. Some families regained title quickly, others entered longer hearings where later occupants, debts, and inheritance claims complicated return. The registry published every correction instead of hiding delay behind ceremony. Marianne became the first elected master of independent seal review. She trained cutters to preserve rejected work safely, required dual custody for every unfinished matrix, and prohibited any office from controlling both command wording and seal access. Eamon completed his coronation only after the final compromise decree had been removed from the succession inventory. He did not ask Marianne to carve the seal. On the evening the restored Whitewax chamber opened, he came without guards, crown, or private letters. "May I enter?" he asked. "As a citizen submitting no decree." "That is all I brought." She stepped aside, but not toward him. "Trust will not return because the record was corrected." "I know. And you will not use patience as another claim upon me." "I know that too." Marianne looked at the man who had once trusted her hands only when no one else could see. "Then come inside. Tomorrow remains undecided." She opened the registry door because the choice belonged to her, not because a king, a coronation, or a living moon seal required her hand.